Alright, welcome back home racing fans. Boy, I'll tell you what, if you thought the first two videos were exciting, we're going to talk about bushings again. I know, calm down. You can remain standing if you want, but I know it's just exciting. I'm going to talk about a couple of more options. The first one to me really isn't an option. You can see here that this is a slotting plus eccentric bushing, and it has its purpose. I just don't think it's an inline car really, or especially with this chassis. And as you can see, the axle hole there is off center. And what that allows you to do is you can adjust the height of the axle by turning it inside the car, and you can lower it. And that sounds like a wonderful thing, just not for this car, in my opinion. And I'll show you another video, but there's several reasons why I don't like to use this in the rear of this car. First of all, I really think these are more made for Sidewinder application, but some people do use them inline. And when you start adjusting the height of the crown, this is only the 0.3, they make a 0.6. It could cause some gear mesh issues and maybe have to go to a offset crown. The other thing is sometimes getting these perfectly aligned is a challenge for some people. Veteran enthusiasts, I know plenty of them. They don't have an issue. They've been doing this for a long time. You know, not a problem. But the big thing is the right height. So you lower this, and you combine it with a smaller diameter wheel and tire, or even almost the identical size. The chassis comes real close to dragging the tracks. So to me, it's just not the ideal bushing for this particular car. If you disagree, hey, then go ahead and use it. The second bushing is one that I've always liked, and that is the Slotting Plus. This is what's called the Victor 2. And as we were talking about before, this has got a housing, and it actually has the conical brass bushing on the inside, kind of like your slotted inline cars. If you don't know what those are, then never mind. But what this allows is this housing is designed so that it is a self-centering type bushing, and I'm going to show you how that works. So these are that's my only alternative aside from the one that we just showed, a standard racing bushing or standard bushing that I showed from Slot Car Corner. This is a good option, and the only downside is availability. Sometimes they're just tough to find. But I've been using these for, oh gosh, several years. Even when the first Victor 1s came out, I started to use them in these cars. And they work well in the Carrera chassis. There's a little bit extra work we're going to have to do. I'll show you that. But this is my option. But first, I'll go ahead, just to show you, I'll mount this eccentric bushing in there, and we'll talk about it a little further. Alright, so as an example, I've installed those offset bushings in here, and I'm using again the 22 12.5 tire, the larger tire, Paul gauge tire, and you can see I have it set at maximum depth. Put this on here, and hopefully you can see right through there just how close the bottom edge of that magnet pocket is underneath there, as just a simple guide. Nothing that accurate, but here's just a regular popsicle stick, and if you go underneath here, it just won't go. So you're going to pick it up quite a bit, actually, even for a popsicle stick to clear, as you can see. And then I'll drop this down, and you can see hopefully how close that is. So I'm not saying that this approach, these bushings, won't work for your track. If you have a very, very flat track and you're not worried about the clearance, then by all means, you know, if you want to use them, go ahead and use them. To me, between making sure they're perfectly aligned and things like that, it just doesn't do a lot for me. And I'll tell you another reason why. And I know this may not be that big of a deal, but it can be if you use the larger .6s. Is then you start picking up the crown and getting it off center from the pinion, and then you're talking about perhaps having to go to a offset crown, because you start picking that up and then you're going to have gear mesh issues. Like I said, I think these bushings have a place. I just don't think it's in this particular car an inline configuration. Like I said, if you disagree, knock yourself out. I will tell you that if you do decide to use aftermarket wheels and tires on the front, now that's where these bushings can come in handy. If you want to lower this front, and a lot of folks out there do that, is they'll use those bushings up here to lower the front, to get the guide down in there or whatever. But we're not going to worry about that because we're changing it anyway. This is just on a stock chassis. So again, some of you guys have tracks out there that have overpasses, bridges, uneven track, and in that situation I just can't recommend that you use these bushings. Like I said, I just wanted to give you a quick view, and I hope it helps you. Alright, so back to these Victor 2 bushings. I just wanted to illustrate a little bit better what these really do. So I've installed one in here, and I'll just show you that the housing, it has that bushing on the inside, and you can see that it moves. And what that does is basically, like I said, you get the other one in here and it's just self-aligning. Now, can you drop the axle through them like you can with the other bushings? Almost never, okay? But the fitment of the bushing itself to a slotting plus axle is just, well, perfect, really. And the cars that I've installed these in run really, really well, just as good as the ones with regular bushings. But as we showed in the other video with the burr bit, we're going to have to do a little work on this chassis before you snap it in. So we'll get right to it. Alright, so before we install this bushing, we're going to have to do a little bit more sanding on this chassis like we showed you in the other video. And there's a reason why you're going to have to go a little bit more with this one, and that's just for fitment's sake. So what I'd like to show you is, here's a stock axle taken out of the car, and we've got our trusty caliper here, and we're going to give it a measurement. 4.71, 4.70. That's just about the diameter there that we're talking about. So we'll go back. Let's go to the slot car corner bushing. We'll take it out. We'll do the same thing. 4.75, 4.74. So very, very close to the stock bushing in the car. However, this one, like we said, is a bushing inside of a housing. So we're going to give it a quick look at here. And 4.78. And you won't think so, but you know, it is a little bit bigger. So I'm going to show you how we sand the chassis to just give this a little bit more, because I don't want to add any more stress on this chassis than possible. So I'll show you what I'm going to do. So we've got the burr bit all the way through, like I showed you. But I'm just going to sand a little bit more aggressively. And now I can turn it at an angle. I can pull it towards me. I can push it away slightly. It'll pop out. See that? And I'm moving it back and forth. I'm just trying to get a little bit more material off of there. I don't want to crimp the housing on the bushing, but really I don't want to add a whole lot of stress to this chassis when you snap this in here, especially on those areas where the bushing has to clear. We talked about those little notches right there and how we sanded them down for the other one. Well, I'm going to do this a little bit more this time. I'm going to give it a little bit more because I really don't want it to be stressed when you snap the bushing in place. So You just keep going. Like I said, you want to give it a little bit more than the standard bushing because it's simply just a little bit larger and we're trying to reduce the stress. So you get that sanded, now we'll snap it in place. Alright, I finished sanding right here. I think you can see almost the difference between what I've done and the one in here in the background where I haven't done anything. So now this bushing, you should be able to take it and pretty much with just finger pressure, not a lot, you should be able to snap it in. So there it is. That took nothing. It's in there. So there we go. Does it move around? Sure it does. It's nice and loose. And now we're going to glue it in place. But we're not going to use super glue. So let's talk about that. Alright, so I have this side installed, but I want to show you why I don't use super glue. We're talking about these bushings, and you see these little notches inside there, and we'll take a photo. You don't want to take a chance on having super glue flow in there. So that's why we don't use super glue, because then it just defeats the purpose. Now you've just made it solid and it's not self-centering anymore. So what I like to do first is right here on the back side of the bushing is I will take just a little drop of oil, put it inside here, and then put the axle in there, work it around a little bit. So like I said, we've added a little bit of oil there inside, go in here and just work it around a little bit. That's fine. Now, as far as adhesive goes, again, everybody's got their favorite. This E6000 shoe goo, clear silicone. This is great. It's thick. You know, it's not going to go where you don't want it to go if you apply it right. So what I usually do in this sense is I'll just put a little bit here on a toothpick, and then right here at the bottom I'll just kind of flow it around the bottom right there. Not too much, not too little, just right, as they say. So now I can take the bushing and I just put it in, and it goes in just like that, nice and easy. I keep that aligned. There's no adhesive to go in there. So we've done the one side, we've done the other side. It's all in place now. Now you can take your axle, you can put it in here just like that. Make sure that the bushings, because there's a little side-to-side free play, I just go ahead and I just like to push them into the outside like that to seal them. So once I've done that, I'll hold this other side and I'll do that one. This one's done already. So now you can let that dry. It doesn't really, the notches here don't need to be aligned, but I do it. So there it is. It is in there. And as you can see with the self-aligning, look how nice it is already. Almost zero friction just by aligning it. So that's pretty good. So now we'll talk about the tops. Alright, so I used to use the silicone or E6000 on the top, but now I use my little UV pens. I know we've talked about these before, but this UV glue really comes in handy. So while the silicone is drying, I'll just go ahead and I'll add a little bit of the UV glue right here on the top and on this side. It'll flow down in there just a little bit, and then you just give it that zap, just like they show in the commercial. Doesn't take very long. I tell you, this stuff is so handy for a lot of different things. You could use hot glue too. It's just hot glue is a little bit messier actually with all the strings, but we used to use hot glue. And then I'll just go over here and I'll get the other side, and that is done. So those are in there. So you've got the secure silicone on the bottom. You've got this on the top. They are in there, and let's see how accurate it is. Well, almost tips out. Oh well. But for self-centering bushing, boy, I'll tell you what, that's pretty good. Yeah, it's sliding. Yep, there we go. And I haven't even added any lubricant really there yet. So, like I said, this is my my second option for the bushings. If you don't feel like aligning them, these are really good bushings to use. They just work as intended. So that's your other option. So I'm gonna finish this car. As you can see, this is all stock with all the components, and I got to take all of this out of here, and then we're going to talk about the gearing. But I just hope this helps you with some other bushing options. And again, I really appreciate all the feedback I'm getting out there. I know I make some mistakes along the way, and I appreciate you guys reminding me of it. That's what makes a better video and a better article, is all your input. So I look forward to it. Thanks, guys.